I would like to invite Monica Bradley. She is the Director of Technical Services for the First Nation Technical Services Advisory Group.
Okay. Awesome. Come on in. Oh, come on in. He's like, I'm not sure I want to be here. I'm giving away $20, just joking. I was going to say, awesome, excellent. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming. I just wanted to first acknowledge, obviously, us being here on the Anishinaabe, territory. I appreciate that. We're coming from Alberta, so that's amazing. You guys have no snow. We got a dump last night, so I hope you're all loving us right now. Yeah, it's minus 15 there today, so not great. All right, so first of all, I guess my name is Monica Bradley. I'm the Director of Tech Services with TSAG. We call it TSAG. It's the First Nation Technical Services Advisory Group, Inc. We tried to get as many names in one as we could. A lot of people think of us as your counterpart here in Ontario, as the Ontario Tech Services. We're just a little bit different. They started off in engineering, and we actually do all the technical services. So the platforms that I oversee are housing, infrastructure, water, fire, solid waste environment, and youth initiatives. So I've got a couple of hats as well, but hopefully we'll get this all going. So just a little bit about us. So we were created as a not-for-profit organization, and we are actually managed by the Chiefs of Alberta, so the AOTC, that's what our acronym is out there. So the 47 Chiefs got together and created our organization so that we could actually build capacity within the First Nation in Alberta. And actually our goal was to not have jobs 5 years later. So we are in our 25th year. This was 20 when we started it, but we're in our 25th year going in right now. So the things have changed. A lot of people ask why we're still around, and it's not because we didn't do our job. It's because the marks keep changing, really. So where we're going is always changing, and we're trying always to adapt. So it's not that we didn't work ourselves out of a job, it's that we just keep adapting. So we do that. We provide technical services and training to all of our First Nations in very different capacities. So we have 3 treaty regions in Alberta. We work quite a bit with Treaty 6 and 8, that's Central and Northern, and Treaty 7, which is our Southern brothers. They tend to be a little more advanced. They have a lot more money and a lot more access to casinos and funding that is outside, so they have a lot more source funding than some of our other nations. However, we still do quite a bit with them as well, so it's just a little bit different. So there's 2 of us in my team, only our other guy is not here yet today, but my name obviously is Monica, and then my teammate is Dylan Cardinal, and Dylan is from our Saddle Lake First Nation out in Alberta. It's in Treaty 6, and Dylan is actually, if you guys partake in any of these functions, that's who you'll be talking to. So he's just doing another presentation in Alberta, that's why he's not here. And he looks like a gym coach, so if you guys see him, tell him that. So your housing stock, biggest asset that there is in any First Nation. I am an accountant, so I love numbers, and that's the biggest number we have. It's often overlooked because there's just houses everywhere. However, it's huge, and I think it's a portion of our money that is never really taken into consideration. And why it's not is because it's a scary number. In Alberta, we average 9 to 10 people per house in our First Nations right now. We have some with 21. That's the highest we've got so far in a 2-bedroom house, which is terrifying. The planning of how to grow housing stock is a tremendous undertaking. So for all of you that are in here in housing departments, I commend you guys. We have a funny joke in Alberta. If you're in housing, you're in a lifetime well, death is what we always say. We're always like, it's the death trap. You guys deal with the hardest things there are to deal with. Long lists of people and little money. So if you're anything like Alberta, our lovely people at Indigenous Services Canada just talked about how much it is for a house. It's about $480,000 for our Northern brothers to build a basic house up in the north, and that's with transportation and money. And we average about a $210,000 grant. So as you can tell, we don't meet ends at all. So TSAG came along and said, what does that look like for our housing conditions? So we got together with CMHC, and took, if you guys remember years ago, for some of you guys I know you'll remember that page document, it was like a 5-page document that went through a housing assessment. TSEG took that and said, well, it's not really usable and it actually doesn't really give us the details that we need. So we worked with them over 3 years in a working group to get together what we call HCAP, which is a Housing Condition Assessment Program. What we did was we have done 3 major iterations to it, and what we're doing is continually to increase it and customize it a little bit. Now, I'm going to tell you right off the hop, it is not customizable for each First Nation. You can make it customizable, that's the good thing about it, but it comes kind of as a box solution, and then you can take it from there. So I'll show you what it looks like in a little bit. So we actually have an ability to go in and teach inspectors, we call them inspectors out in Alberta, and you guys can call them your housing department, to appraise what your housing stock looks like. And what they do is they do a visual appraisal outside and then inside as well. So the outside includes structures like eaves troughs and wells and cisterns and fencing and all kinds of stuff. So that was not in our first iteration, and actually when we went up to northern BC, they said, well, where's our outside stuff? And I'm like, that's a great question. I guess in Alberta we didn't consider the outside stuff as assets, but those are as well. So some of the other iterations we did was we actually went onto the inside and talked about walls and cupboards and things beyond just the basic envelope of a house. We also took into consideration things like furnaces and that. So in BC was our main point compared to Alberta, only because they use everything different than Alberta. So Alberta uses vinyl and wood, typically a little bit of concrete, and they use hardy board and things I've never even heard of. And then when they have heating systems, they use coal and electric, and we really use like electric. So it was interesting to go around. So we are still continuing to adapt to this program as we have more people using it. So we just recently signed on Newfoundland, some groups in Newfoundland, so they're actually teaching us some stuff that we didn't even know out there as well. So every year we're putting together a huge push for another update, so it's pretty neat, and we'll show you what the current one looks like. We're on version 4 right now. Version 5 will be coming out next year, but that's where we came from. So what the HCAP program does is it ensures that you guys are the sole owners of data. So TSEG comes in and we'll give you guys this program, we'll train you guys on it, and then we leave the database. What that means is we have no access. Our access to that is blown up by our IT people, and if we need to go back in to help you guys have to give us written approval to go back in. We are not allowed to access any of your data. Why this came to be was we had a group in Western Canada that took some housing data from one of our nations and held it hostage. Required a $100,000 payment for the housing data to get back from them, even though they paid for their program. TSEG does not believe in that. We believe in helping make solutions so that you guys can own the data that you're working with. So again, we never touch it. We never give it to anybody, even our lovely partners at Indigenous Services, CMHC. We do not release any of that data without you guys telling us we can, or we showing you guys how to release your own data. Anyone that participates receives top to bottom training. What that means, we'll do it either virtually. Our lovely COVID affected us, so now we can do this virtually, or hands-on, and we come in and teach not only your inspectors, but also your housing department on how to use this database and how to use the dashboard. And the reason that's important is because we feel that the manager should also learn how to do the inspections, but then manipulate the information to be used for annual reporting, funding, etc. So it gives all kinds of stuff, community information, building history, characteristics, like we said, interior and exterior, room by room condition view, which is very important if you need to know how many windows do you need to do in the next year, how many doors, how many roofs. General operational overview, it does do that. Mold summary, which is super important. We have just been hit in Alberta with flooding last year. This year was fires, so we'll have floods again next year. And then maintenance and repair identification. So I want to just tell you a little bit about our maintenance identification and repair. We have a capacity in there to note deficiencies. This program can be utilized to actually create task lists and priority lists. However, it will not go in with your accounting software, and as an accountant, none of them ever do. But it can be used, if you're good in Excel, to bring those into your financial reporting. So we can actually show you how to do that, because I tend to have a little bit of a background in accounting, so I can help with that too. So I'm just going to play you guys a little video about it. It's kind of cool. If it goes. Oh. Let's see, we'll start again. Doesn't look like it's going. that's not. Our program's not working. IT help? Yeah, he can hear it, one guy can. It's not playing the sound. Let me try a different way. Want me to try a different way? Oh, I sure can. Okay, I'm just going to pause this because you guys can go see it on our video thing. It's not playing as well as it should, but that's okay. So at the end, I'll give you guys these little cards. You can scan our QR code and you can watch the entire video. So I was pre-planned just in case. I kind of figured IT was not going to work for me. So the cool thing about this video is it's not only a promotional video, but it actually lets you walk through it. So if you're ever doing a presentation of why something like this would be affordable or a good idea, it actually gives you a 5-minute video and walks you through the entire online database as well as the collection of the information remotely. So that's cool. So our assessors, we train them and complete assessments, so they receive a complete overview. And why we like to come into your nations to teach you guys about how to assess these houses is to make sure all of your assessors are doing things the same way. What we mean by that is we actually had in the pilot program a group of youth go out and assess houses. We got a lot of goods back. Good, good. What does good mean? It's standing. So then we got actually inspectors doing it, and we got poor, which was really funny because when they went out as a team together, one of the youth said, well, it's standing and the doors are there, so I think it's good. I'm like, okay. So we go through an entire thing of showing people things like eaves troughs, roof shingles and how they're curling, things to look for on your furnace or on the water tank. Just because a water tank is 20 years old does not mean it doesn't work. However, there is a likelihood that it is going to fail soon. So the stuff like that we go through in that hands-on training and virtual as well. The other thing is the mobile equipment. This program is actually accessible not only on a tablet, we prefer it on a Samsung tablet. For all of you iPhone users, and I am one as well, Apple does not like R&D to be shared, so it takes us about a month to ask for new programs. And how many Apple iPhone updates do we get? A lot. So for us to then petition them for the new programming always takes us about an extra month. So we recommend that you use a Samsung tablet for this. The other thing is you can actually use Samsung phones, or your iPhone can collect data as well. So the cool thing about this is when you're collecting data out in the community, you can collect them and collect them and collect them. The minute you get into Wi-Fi, it zooms right up into your database for your manager to approve that appraisal. So the cool thing is you can collect. On the tablets that we currently provide to the nations, when you get the training in that from us, holds about 67. Is where we're at, about 67 inspections. So that's quite a day's work. So if you go back, if you're doing 67 inspections in a day, please come see me because I will hire you today. But we typically say it's about 2 hours to do an inspection. They learn the conduct of the mobile condition assessment. So what that means is really how it functions. It's a user-friendly. We had in our working group, age group ranging from 15 to 82 that helped build this app. So we made sure that it was accessible by everybody. Yes, there's some technological things that are going to happen. We went in the deep north, up in Little Red, which in Alberta is about 9 hours away from Edmonton, right into the deep bush. It still collected everything. The GPSing was a little bit off, of course, because there's so many trees, but it was still able to collect all the data, and the minute we went into Wi-Fi, it did collect it all. So the GPSing on this is about 3-foot range, just so you know. That happens the more northern you are. In the city, it's right at the point, but the more remote you get, you're about a 3-foot distance from where that house is. Like I said, housing managers will also be trained. The reason is we want them to be able to do the 24/7 with them as well. We are always there. We are in Edmonton, however, we do answer our phone. So Newfoundland is 3.5 hours ahead of us, and I have answered a call at 4 in the morning. So I'm like, yep, I'll get it, help them through that. Logging in, super easy. You send a forget password, we can send out another one automatically. Then the second day of training, we try and do all the training in one day. The second day is actually just with the managers and anyone that's going to be approving the inspections. And the reason we do that is because they have higher level of requirements of what that database is going to turn into for reporting. So for us, it's really about how do you approve these, how do you go in and edit them. So once somebody submits it, you can go in and edit it. So let's say somebody said, the roof was good and you looked at it and said, no, actually, I think it's just fair, then you are able to go in as a manager and update that to your liking to make sure that it reports that way. An inspector cannot. Once an inspector hits submit on their tablet, it goes. Pardon me. It goes away from them. I'm just gonna, can somebody grab me just a quick glass of water, please? Sorry. Look, I didn't bring one. One sec. Sorry. Okay. So this is what it looks like on a tablet. So like I said, it was developed with 15 people. The 3 youth are what are the difference with the 12. We did 3 youth just to include it. It is user-friendly. It does lots of features, GPS mapping, photo capability, and other features. Some of the other features are things like adding a comment. So when you take a picture of, let's say, a furnace, you're able to comment on that. Is there a clanging? Is something missing? When you go downstairs and take a picture of a basement, if there's overcrowding or boxes, a lot of boxes, then we put those comments on suggestions on where to keep that boxing. Any of that kind of stuff, every picture, you're allowed, well, we say about up to 5 pictures per deficiency, is about good. Some people get overzealous and your inspector the very first time is going to take 100 pictures of everything, because then you get to look at those 100 pictures. What we always say is about 5 pictures pretty solid. Front on, like head on, maybe from the top, maybe from the bottom, and maybe from a side, but we really, I mean, a door is a door is a door, right? Simple and easy editing. You guys, or you can train your assistants to go in and literally edit it within seconds, and it's real-time data. The minute you hit submit, all of your data changes instantly in the dashboard. So it's really quite quick and easy for you guys to do that. I'll just step aside for a second, talk about something. A lot of people ask, what if somebody deletes everything? It's impossible, just so you know. We have tried to delete it, we have tried to break it. What happens is if somebody, and perhaps we had this experience, a disgruntled employee tried to delete the entire dashboard. It doesn't happen. First of all, it goes through 2, are you sure? So let's say myself and yourself, we're both managers. If I get angry and delete it, it goes then to my second in command and says, Monica wants to delete this dashboard. Do you want to delete it? Even if we both said yes, all you do is send TSEG a simple email that says, hey, something happened here. Can you please reinstate it? And we will. It'll go back to the minute that it was deleted, right before it was deleted. So you will never lose that data. We won't go into it. We'll just give you re-access to the data. Validation process. The reason we leave this one for last is it's really important. So as your inspector is going through their mobile app and doing all these, it's about 72 pages, I'm not going to lie, but some of it, of course, if it doesn't pertain, then you would go quicker. What happens is they're going to hit submit. If your inspector missed something that's required, it won't let him or her submit that form. They have to go back and get that data. The great thing about that is at the end of a house, you hit submit, you know what it does. It actually gives you a list of the things you forgot, and you can actually click right on it, and it will go back to that page and tell you what you missed on it. So the really great thing about that is you never get a submission to the manager level that's not complete. When you guys get them, they're completed, which is awesome. You guys are going through a lot, so believe me, you don't want that. And then we have the dashboard. So your dashboard is really built for understanding what that asset is. And it does look like this, just so you know. On the left-hand side are some basic, and I'll show you it, basic graphs that kind of show you things like mold, room by room. It'll show you how many roofs. If you select one house or if you select the entire community, you can do all of those kind of things. Let's say you want a section of the community only that you want to look at. All those adjust every time you make your selections. On the right-hand side is what we call a room by room. So I'll show you what that looks like, but literally we collect in every room. So if you want to just go into a house and look at a certain room that doesn't make sense, maybe it got past the inspector and you just were like, something doesn't make sense when you're looking at one of your graphs. You can drill right down on the graph, or you can actually go into the room by room selection and actually look at its own self, all by itself. So some of the things, it's secure. So TSEG has a network operations center. Everything we do is done in the cloud, so it is not done by us. It is secure. Everyone's asking about the whole ransom thing. We just had one of our nations get ransomed, so we're aware of it. We have security going through that thing all the time. It's a double authenticator as well, so you guys will have to do a double authenticator when you guys sign up. But it is cloud-based, meaning you can access your data from anywhere as long as you have a login. Your dashboard is aggregate data. So a lot of people say, can it plan for the future? It cannot. It shows you your point in time inspections and where you're at today. However, you can extract all the data to get to where you're going to go. I'm so sorry. Individual unit data. So that's important if you tend to have a occupant or renter. So in Alberta, we don't rent, so I apologize. I know some places have renting. In Alberta, we call them occupants, just so that it's a little bit different, but that unit data follows also an occupant. So as an example, if you tend to have an occupant that is harder on houses or has been not paying for services or that kind of stuff, you can actually track that in an individual person as well. So it's nice that it gives that. Again, it's high priority to whoever's in your administrative office. The inspector never sees those kind of comments as well, just so you know. Inspections only see the pertinent data for the house. They don't see anything else. Mapping. The cool thing about this is it actually, with the GPSing, will give you a map of where all your houses are, so you can actually print that one as well, which is super cool if you guys are doing any kind of planning for services, etc. Every piece of information that we have can be exported into PDF or Excel. So depending on how savvy you are in Excel, you can do it really cool. The PDF we did for a lot of reporting. It allows us to insert those into any reports that we have, which is a cool feature. If you guys are doing annual reports or planning, it's really good. We actually have a couple of our nations that use it with their CMHC annual reports, which is really good to show what that need is, because the deficiency reporting can be extracted, which is really huge to show your need. So that's a great feature. And summaries. It gives lots of summaries in here. So it does stuff like mold summaries or deficiency summaries or room summaries, roof summaries. We made sure to make sure anything that a housing manager would have looked at was given as a summary as well, so you guys make it easy for reporting as well. And repair management. So it does not integrate into a task list. You can create a task list from there. When you print out all your deficiencies, you can prioritize them, because we do prioritize urgent or not. So that would be your own. However, it doesn't do the, I'm going to email this out to Bob to do his task list today. That's where you got to be a little more savvy. And the reason we did that is not everybody is as savvy on Excel or in the system, so we tried to make it as user-friendly. However, I can show you how to use it and do it the other way. So Dylan and I have created a module on top of that. We'll show somebody how to do that. The other thing, even though it says housing condition, one of our groups in BC has a small nation. They only have 7 houses, which is a tiny, tiny little guy. What they've actually done is adapted this to do all of their infrastructure on it. So they actually have done all of their buildings, school, and everything in the Housing Condition Assessment Program. We worked with them on how to collect the same data, and even though it's called the housing condition, they're actually using it for their infrastructure, because they just don't have the funds to purchase an asset management toolkit. So we've actually adapted it for those smaller nations as well, and you can start collecting data on infrastructure, so that's kind of neat. And we actually have a module on how to show everybody how to do that as well, if you were looking for something like that. So this is kind of our computer demo, and I can show you guys this in a sec, but this is really what it looks like. So as you can tell, down the left-hand side is all the provinces that we're currently working with right now. Then we have a demo community, and we built this one so we could show you, and I'll click into that in a second. So what it does is it gives the demo community as a whole. So when you click on the whole community, that 1, 2, 3 demo community, it shows me that there's 14 houses done in that community. Then underneath it, it actually shows the houses that we've collected on. So you can click on 1003, or in here, we also did the admin building, the sub-office building. That's what we're talking about in here, is that those buildings are actually in here. So we actually show in the demo community how to build infrastructure into this program. What you then do is you're able to actually review each of these by tab up top. So the first one's general information. Typically, this is used for inspection dates. You put all this information, so every tab that's on there is every tab that's actually on the mobile form as well. So general information is what is used to gather from your inspector just about the general information on the house. The house general information is the occupant's name, how long they've been there, how many people are in the house. Just so everybody knows, we also include animals in Alberta as an occupant. And the reason is they cause wear and tear. So it's a great way for us to note that, but we always remind everybody, just make sure if your inspectors are counting them or not, so we're all keeping the same aggregate data. And then the next one would be the history. So the history of the house is stuff like, have you had any floods? Have you had mold? So if you're just starting off with the HCAP program, it's that background information that takes forever. The one thing about it though is once you collect the data, it's always there, which is awesome. So it takes a lot right off the hop to collect the data, but after that, it's an annual thing. So what we kind of have done is created also a template that says, based on the number of houses you have, this is how often you should be rotating them through every quarter to do a complete inspection. I say that because everyone's like, well, don't you do annual inspections? Well, we have a nation down in the south that has 17,000 houses, and they just don't have the amount of people that can do that. So we have to rotate that through. That's our largest nation, so they're like, no. Even with the largest department, I don't think they'd be able to do that. So I'll take you through a demo of that. So yeah, our thing for us is the time's now. Get yourselves started. So there is a lot of conversations coming down the pipe right now, and TSAG's been really busy right now about people taking on sovereign information and learning about how to take care of your own information. I'll tell you a little bit about how much this costs, just so everyone's aware. We did build it and ran it as a pilot project in Alberta for 3 years. I funded it for the next 4 after that by our own revenue, by one of our environment companies, for another 4. We just weren't able to maintain it. So what we decided to do was to offer it up to tribal councils and First Nations at $1,000 a year. What that $1,000 pays for is for us to program new things for it and then also have the 24/7 capability. So there are 3 of us that know this program inside outside. That's what you're paying for, is for us to be able to keep doing the programming on it. Really, my time and Dylan's is actually not included in that. We're just trying to get a better program for you guys. So that money that we collect on it, the $1,000 a year, is really just to keep that software going and the security going. Now, I also get asked, well, what if we come in with 16 tribal councils, or sorry, 16 nations within a tribal council? We will work with you guys the exact same way. What happens in that situation is it is backboned as a structure. So as an example, your tribal council will have access to all of the nations underneath it, and then each nation will have their own login. So if somebody looks after more nations, then you'll get login information for both of those nations. We have that in Alberta where, you know, one of our nations looks after, the housing group looks after 3 out of 5 of the tribal council, so we definitely have that built already. The tribal council also, we can limit what they have access to. So if your tribal councils, so in some of our regions, the tribal councils don't have access to all of the information. So we can limit what they have access to. So we just create a different level of security for them. So the account manager has access to everything, can change, add, remove, that kind of stuff. Then we have a manager and all the way down. If you need a separate addition in there, we can create that security level as well. We also have which is called a viewer. The viewer is important for chief and council. So we actually encourage people to give chief and council access to your housing data so that they can at a glance also get their reporting information. It's important that they know what you're talking about at all times as well. That's what we give them, a viewer. And the viewer just allows them to see things. They can play in it and they can get reports, but they cannot touch anything. So if they need something, they have to go to the housing manager to ask for it. So it never used to be that way, but we have just found that some chief and councils like to move things around, so it's easier for them. And then I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work for everybody else. So I just want to escape out of this for a second, and I'm going to show you our database. And I'm sorry our presentation had to come this way, but our database is secure. Like I said, it's hosted through our Network Operations Center. We have 2 people that have access to the Network Operations Center within the realm of TSAG. Neither of them work at the office, so if something happens to the NOC, they have to come into the office. They are the only people with passcodes to that room, so none of us can actually access it at all. They are spending probably a week to 2 weeks a month on security. So your information is highly secure. And it also, our NOC hosts also stuff like the health information in Alberta, privacy information. So it's very well secured. So just in case anyone was worried about that. It is our most protected room in our building, actually. It is the most fireproof and waterproof. I'm like, well, if there's ever something happening, we all got to run into the NOC, but we can't get in. So yeah, I guess not. So here's what it is, and I just want to show you. So if you go into the demo community as an example, this is the information that you're going to be looking for. Oh, now it's logged me out because I waited too long. Just 1 sec. That did it to me because I started earlier just to make sure. Okay, so let's go into house 1001. So this gives you information like the inspection date. So as an example, that's the date that your inspector goes to see it. The good thing about that is you can run reports as when was the last time this house inspected and why hasn't it been inspected. So you also can see who's doing what, which is nice. The inspector, we always just say to people, please just use initials. Like, you got 4 Bobs, I mean, somebody did that, and then they're like, well, which Bob did it? Well, now we don't know who did it. And just so you know, in my office, there's 2 MBs, 2 Monica Bs, if you can imagine. So I always get her phone calls, she gets mine, and I'm like, well, you can do whatever you like with mine. Then it goes into your general housing information. So let's open that up. So as an example, the community. So if you have a community inside your community, so as an example, in one of our nations in Alberta, we have what is called, they call their section the Bronx. That's what we put there for their community, is the Bronx, actually. That's how they want to know all their separate subdivisions, so they actually name their subdivisions within there, so you can do that all. Population of the community, just so you know, the first time you fill it in for this community, it's for all of them. If you want to change it, then it will. Let's say you added a second section, so we have, one of our nations has separate land in a different area, so we want it to be tied to the same, but we want different population. You can do that here. The GPS location is the location of your nation, so it allows us to show where that is. In that instance where we have multiple areas, that's why we do that. So this is the occupant information. So we chose in our demo just to use initials. However, I would encourage you guys to use your occupant information so that you know who they are. Their address, phone number, and the length of tenancy. The notes here are what we're talking about when we say you know, habitual this, or, you know, did not pay this, or whatever. That's where your note's in. So again, it tells you guys a little bit about that. So even as you're transitioning, it gets that. The type of ownership, rental, community-owned, private, or Section 95, we can add to this list. This is just for our demo community, which one we chose. You also can run a report by any box that has a selection in here. So if you want to know how many Section 95s you have, that'll run the report that way. So anything that's got a box actually can be reported on. The history, like I said, is really just mold problems, flooding, leaks, notes. Need to check sink in area. So stuff like that where we, you know, maybe we had a habitual problem, or you took this over and you don't know if that, well, it's skipping. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, I'm just going to put this down for a sec. Maybe I'm doing it. Those notes are things that, let's say you've just come into the job, then you'll know, and you can actually clear that note if things are done. Characteristics, year of construction, how many estimated years are remaining. These are good information as you're looking for new funding. General condition rating, so we actually base it the same way as acres reports are done on your general condition rating. We try and keep in the same so that we are all talking the same language. Building information, this is where I was talking to you about. Is it semi-detached? Is the sewer line municipal? Cistern, water, electrical, all of these you can report on as well when we're going in to talk about how many cisterns need to be cleaned or wells need to be fixed. That's important. Site information. This was all based, we built this one. This is where we started to build all that outside. The sloping toward house, that's, you know, we have a lot of that flooding issue in Alberta for sure. Is there standing water? Those are important for us because it's going to talk about problems that are going to happen later on down the line. And then just some additional site notes. So each one of these, like I said, goes on your tablet and you just swipe to the left. Everyone always calls it the Tinder tablet, and I'm like, oh my God. We created it before Tinder came around, but you swipe left to go to the next phase, or you swipe right if you want to go back to the page ahead. I'm just going to go to the 2 important ones that everyone talks about. So the images, this one's not going to have an image for sure. I will look for one, but the repairs, let's go to repairs first. So as an example, this is what I'm talking about. It collects all the data that you were doing repairs throughout the house, and what it does is it puts it in here. So we kind of give you a task list. It's kind of a baby task list, and if it was done. So in this one, the plumbing in the kitchen sink needed $500 approximately. Your inspector can gauge that, or you can go in after and get that. And it was identified. Then what you do is we actually ask them to put a picture of it broken and then a picture of it fixed. And this was actually a request from our BC group, because what happened is in one of our houses, or their houses, I guess, the occupant had claimed the door had never been fixed. It was kicked in and then it was kicked in again. So we actually had proof that it was kicked in, so then it was at the occupant's expense. So it was a good way to track kind of what's happening. So as soon as they fix the door, they take a picture on the tablet right in that house, fixes it, and then this clears off of here because you're going to actually edit it as complete, and it's done. That way, if you have any of that kind of occupancy issues, you're actually able to track those kind of things. The costing in here, you can go in after and put how much it really cost you. So there's an estimate for your estimating and then an actual. It's a good way to track kind of how finance is doing their stuff as well. And then the last place is the mold review. So it actually goes through every area. You won't see in Alberta anyway, we don't go into confined spaces. We're not allowed to with TSAG. There's been some injuries, so we tend not to go into crawl spaces and that. However, if a homeowner wants to go in there and do that, they certainly can send us pictures and we'll upload it. We don't go into any crawl spaces in Alberta, but this actually can talk about a lot of that stuff too. So the reason that we do the mold review is in Alberta, it became a really big problem after the last few years of flood. And everyone's like, well, show us the pictures. This actually will do that. This will take a picture of the flood area and then also put it in here so that a report can be done by house, which is really nice so that if you're going for funding and emergency management or any of that, this is where you get that information from. Some of the things we equip our inspectors with always is a tape measure, because one inspector's like, the mold was this big to this big. I'm like, that's how I do measurements, just, you know. The ladies earlier at my table were laughing because I was doing our deck at home and I measured it was 14 inches and 3 ticks. Now, 3 ticks to me means something. She's laughing because I know everyone, like, I don't know what it is. I'm horrible. I'm going to go to that one tomorrow that teaches me how to measure. But honestly, this kind of a measurement does not work when you're trying to get actual funding. They need to know true measurements. So it's important. I'm just going to show you now the dashboard and what it looks like so that you can see the dashboard itself. And then I'll open it up. So this is what your dashboard looks like. Of course, if you have more houses, it'll be a little more dramatic. Ours is not quite that dramatic. But these are the standards. So the year that the house is built, the age, your breakout of ownership. Lots of people want to know what our breakout of ownership is. Number of residents, like I said, well, this was our demo, but if we did a real one, which I cannot show you because it's not our data, that would show you some of our houses that have huge numbers. But as you click this is the history, but as you click this and do perhaps living room, and I'll just go down here. This shows you just the stats of the living room. Oh, I just squished it, did I? Oh yeah, there you go. So any one that you choose here, it'll give you the general condition of everything in that group. So if you're choosing the entire area, it gives you all of the population of that, the conditions, the wall condition, all of that. Let's say it's a bedroom. Bathrooms are huge too. Real-time data. So these are all standard reports that you can do. That it does it. So as you move through any of those tabs, it just keeps updating it for whatever look you want. So the good thing is everyone has access to, from the administrator up, all of the reports. If you want one of the inspectors, let's say you have a lead inspector that looks at those things, you can give access to them as well. So it's a quick overview. I know I do have cards, like I said, it does walk you through it, so I'd like you guys to take a look, but I'm not sure if anyone has questions, but do you want to run that just in case? If anyone has questions, please ask. Or I've stunned you all. Oh! Oh, sure. Sorry, just right back here on that.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you have, if you assess for energy efficiency, like levels of insulation and that kind of thing?
Well, that's a great question. That is our next reiteration. Yep. Energy efficiency in Alberta has become obviously a little bit crazy as well. So we're working on that to try and get to the degree of efficiency. One of the things I came back to was like when we talk about furnaces and water tanks, we did a report up with the houses in one of our nations, and it showed that it was a 94% need for energy efficient water. That's not a great number when you get to give it to our lovely Indigenous Services or CMHC if we need this much money, because it's big. A lot of our stuff is very aged. And, you know, the one thing also that one of the nations brought up is what happens to that stuff after you take it out. So not only the removal of all those furnaces, but then what happens to the environmental impact of that. So that's another, that was one we didn't really think of, and I'm like, oh, I guess we really have to think about both of those. So there's two costs to that one, but it is coming. That side is coming for sure.
I know there is a number of computer softwares out there
Yes.
to do home maintenance and home
Yeah.
housing stock on First Nation.
Mm-hmm.
So who owns this database or who owns this software? Like if someone is to use this or purchase this, who do you go to?
You would go to TSAG. So TSAG does hold the data, it's like the data software itself. However, you own all the data, so that is a fair question. So what does happen, though, I didn't mention this earlier, is let's say your nation is with us for a couple of years and then is like, you know what, we don't want to be with you anymore. What we do is we would actually save all that information for you and send it to you, both on a stick or whatever, depends on how big it is, as well as virtually we'll send that to you. And the reason is, again, we don't own that, so our NOC guys do that and send it back to you. Let's say in a year after that, you're like, oops, we kind of want to come back on. Then our NOC guys go and pull all that information back in. So we never delete it. It never gets deleted from the NOC, but it does get paused, if you will. And the reason we do that is because we have found nations that go away. Maybe there's new leadership. But yes, at this point, TSEG does own it. Now, people ask, well, if you guys are going to be out of jobs, what does that happen? Well, I don't think TSEG will ever be out of a job. We'll just redesign ourselves into something else, so hopefully that always stays. But TSEG will be the owner of the software and the app, and we're the one that invests all the money into making sure all of that keeps going. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, just one sec.
So anybody across Canada can purchase it from you?
Absolutely, you bet.
What's that cost involved?
It's $1,000 a year. So again, if you've got multiple nations that want to come in, we would be willing to work with what that looks like. We had to baseline it at something, so we found that $1,000 seemed to be affordable for everybody, and then it's plus the training. So the virtual training obviously is less, but we actually can provide the tablets to you guys, fully ready to go with the app and everything installed. Some nations have chose to buy their own tablets and install the software, which causes a little bit of interesting. If they're very good techie, they can fly with it, but if they don't, then they tend to lose passwords and stuff like that. So we keep all of that information for you guys and just email it out.
So the cost upfront cost just the annual,
Just the annual fee, you bet. Sorry?
covered under its funding?
It is not.
Well, communities can access, because the funding doesn't go to TSAC
Nope.
directly, but communities can use it.
$1,000 a month and a tablet.
$1,000 a year, not a month, a year.
Purchasing tablets to run a program like this, that would be allowed to be submitted.
Yeah, you can use your minor capital funding, and if you need any one-time cost, you can access it through the capacity builder.
Thank you. I always let you guys answer that one.
So,
BC actually did do that, actually. A group in BC, 16 of them got together and got funded that way, and ended up us coming in and doing the training for all 16 of them. It was really good, and it was actually, of the 16, there's 12 that are still using it, so that's awesome.
so the premise then is this is a database identifying a point in time of the assessment of individual buildings. So you don't go back and change the assessment reversing. It's just every time you do an assessment, it's a new input to that building.
Yeah, and we can store the old information so that it never gets lost. The other thing about that is really, you can use this as a day-to-day database, just so you know.
So
It can be used.
You'd be able to download. So if you did it on an annual basis, you'd be able to download your annual
Absolutely.
to Excel and keep data. So this would be a kind of an add-on or a good module to go with your full robust asset management system.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes, oh, back there. too. Oh,
I
sorry.
think my question's been answered, but came in a couple minutes late. So this is not really an asset management full toolkit like.
No.
So if I wanted to know in 2030 how many roofs I need to plan on replacing, this won't really tell me
You
that.
can extract this data to build that, yes.
Right.
So,
And it also does not do work orders, is my
No.
understanding. Okay.
no.
Are you thinking about doing that at some point?
That is actually in our reiteration for the next step. Yes, we've been asked that many times, so we're definitely back in the white shirt, cream shirt back there.
So my question is this on? Okay. My question is about your training.
Yes.
So, so you're saying you'll go anywhere in Canada, right? So what is the cost to the First Nation on your training?
It just depends on where it is and how much. So what we do typically is if we can get there, if we're going to do a multiple of training, then we try to share that cost amongst other nations. We also, if there's a group of you that are willing to work together, so in BC, the 16 regions came together. So what we did was just go the once, and we stayed for 3 days and ended up working with each of the groups individually. So we try to do as much cost sharing as we can. It just costs for us to come out there. However, we can do it virtually as well. So as an example, we would pay for the tablets and all of that, send those out to you. Once you receive them, we'll book the schedule of training, and then we'll do it virtually with you. So we actually offer the virtual ability as well. It's just what we've heard from if you have a very techie group, They can fly with the virtual training. Some of your inspectors may need hands-on. It just depends on what your group looks like and what your comfort level is. Because some of the managers as well are like, I'd like to see you one-on-one to show me how to walk through this dashboard.
So isn't there a qualification that exists for inspectors?
It's for inspectors and housing managers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
good question.
We are running out of time. We can take only questions, one question.
Anyone else? Like I said, I've got these cards up here. Please feel free to grab them. I'll just leave them up by the projector, and you can just scan the QR code. It'll take you right to our program, and it actually has some information in that 5-minute video, which is really detailed of how to go through it. So if there's nothing else, thank you guys so much.